Welcome to the Tactical Business Podcast. I'm your host, Wade Skalsky, and today we are speaking with Spencer Feldman from Greenlight Sights. Spencer, how you doing?
Thanks for having me, brother.
I want to talk the whole time with your name like from the Equalizer, but like the old Equalizer where you would go Spencer like that, right? So I don't know if you ever saw that. I might be dating myself with that show, but
Dating both of us.
I know. I approve. What? Well, I'm happy to have you on the show today. What part of the country are you in?
Southern Oregon.
Oh, nice. That's beautiful, beautiful up there. I know a very curmudgeonly hermit in the Gold Coast, and so
I think you now know two curmudgeonly hermits.
no, oh, right, exactly. So I'm excited to talk to you today. But before we kind of get into some of the business principles that we want to chat about your success, how did you end up in the business that you're in? How did you get here?
Right. So I've been in the alternative medical field for like 25 years. I'm an inventor, and I don't like to reinvent wheels. What's the point? I'm not going to try to cut up and make another slice from a pie that's already there. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your genius, of your talent, right? So what my principles have always been, find a problem that doesn't have a solution. And then don't even bother advertising, because if your product's good, it'll advertise itself. If you have to advertise, that's kind of implying that, people aren't talking. And if they're not talking, then, your products may not be good enough, right? So, that's sort of been my idea. So I've been an inventor trying to fix people's health for a long time, but I'm a gun enthusiast. And with inventor, it's like, you can't turn that off. It's like every time you look at any problem anywhere, you're like, could I fix that somehow? So anyway, I was like, I was in my man cave and doing my curmudgeonly hermit thing, like your friend, right? I was in my man cave, and I have these big bobs. They're called they look like body bags, but they're shaped like people. And so I was you go at it and you can go do some combinations and you can do some knife work and then I transitioned to a SIRT laser pistol. It was late in the day, and it was kind of dark in there because it was in my garage. I didn't have the lights on, and I couldn't see my front sight, Wade. And I'm like, oh man, too many years staring through a microscope. My eyesight's shot. Well, I'm gonna point shoot in a gunfight anyway. I mean, gunfights happen at 10 feet. I've got enough muscle memory. I just have to push the gun out. It's going to be there. And I did my point shooting, and I was making the hits. And then I had the aha moment, because I couldn't see the front sight. At 56, my eyesight was shot. I say, well, if what really happens on a gunfight, because most people, or a lot of people who have been in gunfights will tell you they don't even remember finding their sights under stress. If what really ends up happening is point shooting, well, then wouldn't it be great to have a optic on your gun that was designed for point shooting, that took that reality into consideration? And what would that be? So I sat and I thought about it for a while, and I thought, okay, I'd want it to be really, really big, right? I'd want it, if possible, to be in line with the bore, right? So maybe something over the back plate. And I don't have to be all that accurate. I just have to be really, really fast, because at 10 feet, I'm not really gonna miss. You're almost using it more as just a confirmation that your gun is extended, right? So what I did is do you remember those things we had as kids? Maybe they sometimes they would come in like a cereal box, and it's called a lenticular lens. And basically it's this little kind of toy that has an animation and it changes as you move it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, yeah, right.
You had the football one, right, where they would you'd hold the kicker, you'd see just the kicker, and then you'd hit it, and they would kick the field goal kind of thing, or back and forth or whatever. Yeah, I think my generation, Gen X, we all remember that, I think.
Okay, perfect. That's called the lenticular array. And I said, well, what if I had that, except instead of a guy kicking a football, it was either on or off, some bright light or none at all, right? And the light it would basically give you an image when you were on target and not when you're off. And I said, okay, well, that would be interesting. Well, I would want it, what color should I pick? Well, green is the one that's at the center of the human visual field, so let's pick green. So let's make something that turns bright green when your eye and the barrel and the target are all in one line, right? And then, so if you're lined up, it's going to go green, right? And then if you're off, it'll go to another color. So instead of like, so this would be like the football guy getting ready to kick, right? And kicking, right? So these are the two images, off and on. And so I made that, and well, I'll actually show it to you right now. Okay, so we have here, this is on a Glock, and I don't know if you, there you go, you see, right? So now you see it goes white, so when it's off target, it's white, and then boom, goes green, and then it's off again, right? Now, it's not gonna correct for side to side. You'll see that it's the same side to side, and we're only correcting for up and down. And I'll explain why I did this, right? First off, when you can tell when the gun's right or left in your hand because you can see the barrel, right? Secondly, you know, muscle memory, you're going to be straight on, sorry, I've been staring at my image. You're going to be straight on when you point, because this left and right stuff, you get that from muscle memory and you can see immediately that the slides off. The issue is when you are up and down. So when you're down, well, how far down are you? Well, you can't tell because the gun's behind your hand, right?
Right.
So the issues are up and down for a couple of reasons. One, you can't tell how far you are by looking at it, so you can overcorrect and do this, right? The second thing is you've got recoil, right? And the third is if you're moving, you're bouncing, unless you're like special ops and you've done a lot of kind of glide walking, right?
Right.
So it's the up and down that gets you. So we made this part, and it flashes green when your up and down is correct. And so basically what it does is, what I said is, all right, what's the standard gunfight distance? It's about 10 feet. All right, how big is the thoracic cavity, right? You know, 12 to 18 inches. Okay, let me make it so that if you put this green box over your target, that you're going to be in the thoracic cavity. So I gave away a lot of accuracy on purpose, right? I'm not trying to do a hostage rescue shot. I'm not trying to do 50 feet. That's your top sights, your red dots, which it co-witnesses with. I just want to be really fast and get hits on torso. And I want to get it faster than the opponent. And so I add in a little bit of leeway, right? Because, you know, drilling somebody the same hole over and over and over again in their chest, that's great that it's accurate, but if it's slow, what was the point? I would rather just, you know, generally ventilate in a survival situation like that. So that was sort of like the history of what I was trying to do. I wanted something that was based on the reality of a gunfight, which is very high stress. It's going to happen at 10 to 15 feet. It's going to all be over in 3 seconds. You're probably, if you're the good guy, unfortunately, you're probably going to have the, you know, behind the OODA loop curve, because the bad guy already knows what they're planning to do, and they probably already got their hand on the gun. They may already have the drop on you. So we've got the fact that, you know, we're already coming possibly from a time deficit, and we've got to make that up. And so what we do is we trade a degree of accuracy you don't need for quite a bit of speed that ends up saving your life, or may save your life.
Wow, that's a really, so first of all, there's like 15 different things I want to talk about with regards to that, because there's so many cool parts of that story. But I mean, I think the cool thing is that you're exactly right for a gunfight, is that you don't have cover. You probably don't have cover. You probably don't have concealment, right? It's just going to be straight on, you know, who can shoot faster and who can be more accurate. And in that situation, I can see how your product can be, you know, extremely, especially if you train with it, obviously it's extremely helpful in that regard, right? Because it just could really say, okay, I'm good, go, right? And then the second thing also what's good about it is that what I like is that you know, you can have it with since it's on the back plate, you can have it with your regular sight, you can have it with your iron sights, however you want to do it. So it's just another layer of another tool that you can use at the same time with anything else that you're doing.
So the way I like to think about it is, if you're in a drag race, right, you're going to start in first gear. If you start in second gear, you lose the race, you know, because it's not the fastest gear. So I think of a gunfight as like a drag race. I want to get 2 or 3 hits as fast as humanly possible. And then I might transition, depending, to my top sights or red dots. One of the issues, and the police are having an enormous bit of trouble with this, is a lot of police agencies are going to red dots, and what they're finding is it's slowing them down. Red dots are great, but they take quite a bit of training. And even when you're trained, they still slow you down. So what I would say is, like, you can use this with red dots, and I have a red dot with one of these on it. and it lets you transition. So if you're a fan of red dots, great. Go to the Greenlight Sights first to get those initial shots before your opponent even sees their sights on you. And then if you want to go to red dot, the red dot's already there because you're already lined up. So, you know, there is that kind of aspect to it. You know, how much time do we actually have in a gunfight? It's not very much. And, you know, when I've been watching people shooting, because I'd kind of, you know, I set this up at NRA and SHOT Show, and I'd be on the side looking at them as they're shooting with a laser version of the gun. And I'd watch them. So, you know, they draw real quick. And then there's this moment where they're finding their sight, and I call it a fishing expedition, and then they shoot. And what I find is one of two things happen. Either they take the time to use, and I'd let people try with dots and irons versus ours to compare, right? Dots are the slowest, irons are faster, and then we're the fastest. We're about twice as fast as a dot and about 57% faster than irons. And what I find people will do is they'll raise the gun up, and either they'll take the time to use their irons and their dots, which can be 1.2, 1.5, 1.8 seconds, sometimes longer, depending on their skill set. And then they'll make the shot, and they'll be accurate, but they're going to be slow, right? Or they'll rush the shot. They'll get the gun up. I'll see them wiggle for about 300 milliseconds, and then they'll just, you can see that their brain is going, I better shoot now. I can't spend all day trying to find this optic, right? And they'll make a shot. And the problem is if you rush irons or if you rush a dot, it's a terrible shot. So irons and dots, to be used properly, you have to find them, right? You have to locate them. And if you don't, it's not accurate. So what was really weird is not only were we faster than the dots or the irons, more than half the time we're more accurate. And, you know, I'm thinking, why are we more accurate? This is not a sight designed for accuracy, right? We're more accurate, what I realized watching people, is because they're rushing the irons and the dots, and they're making bad shots. Now, like, all right, how accurate do you have to be? Okay, so 2 hits anywhere in the torso, or 2 plus, so we'll call it 3, hits anywhere in the torso will incapacitate 87% of people based on, you know, shooting analyses. So, and then 13%, they're your dedicated opponents. They're methamphetamines, they're body armor, or they're just hard as nail, you know, tough people. And they're, you know, you need to do the switch, not the timer. You have to turn them off to stop the threat. There's no other way around it. So granted, you know, shots to the heart will create more shock than a shot to the lungs. So if you can do the heart, better. But 87% is pretty good odds for hitting anywhere in the torso. And you can make headshots with these, and they're accurate enough to do headshots. So with our sights, you know, we're kind of playing the odds to a degree. I'm saying, hey, get 3, bang, 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 get 3 shots off as quick as possible. That's almost 90% odds that you've just stopped the gunfight right there. And if you think about it, you know, if we increase someone's speed by 2-fold, right? So someone shoots, say, 1.8 seconds, and we get them down to 0.9. So we give them, let's say, an 800 millisecond advantage, roughly, an 800, 900. That's about 4 shots. So that means, on average, you're going to get 4 shots off faster with our sights, or you'll have 4 you know, that much time of less bullets coming your way. So, you know, a couple 100 milliseconds in a gunfight may not sound like a lot, but when we go force on force with people, we'll make at least 1 hit on them almost every time before they get a single shot on us, sometimes 2. And if those 2 shots can put enough trauma into somebody to put them into shock, they'll never end up making the next shot, right? It's you got 2 aspects of shock, right? One is the system just shuts off, and that's it. They're going down, right? Some people, you shoot them even in the toe, and their body just shuts down, you know, a certain percentage. But the other is when you shoot someone, there's a moment of trauma that even if they can recover, it takes them half a second. You know, there's like, whoa, what just happened? Oh, I'm in a gunfight, get back to it. So if you can get 1 hit, and then your second hit happens within another 200 milliseconds, and then the third hit happens in another 200-300 milliseconds, you ride that trauma wave. They never get out of the trauma loop. Their body never gets out of reaction and can never actually make the shot.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you ever saw the movie Collateral with Tom Cruise, but that gunfight he has in the, you know, in the alleyway where it's like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, 3 shots on target, you know, and it's I always watch that and I think about that as a I know it's a movie, but at the same time, though, is it helps to put in perspective how fast these things can happen, right? And
Yeah.
any, like you say, any advantage, even if it's a millisecond or two, could be the difference between getting shot and not getting shot. What I
Right.
really
So,
Go ahead.
well, I was just saying, I know you said it takes training to do this. Actually, it takes about 30 seconds of training.
No, I meant Tom Cruise's level of
No, no, no,
his
right, right.
hip
But I
firing,
remember,
right? Yeah.
no, no, absolutely. But I remember you were saying earlier, hey, this could be good if you're trained on it. It only takes about 30 seconds. And this
Mm.
is what we end up seeing, right? People who do this, draw, wiggle, bang, goes draw, bang, draw, bang. I mean, and that's what it comes to. It's just at the moment, it's like press bang. And, if you watch people who do this for about a minute on some of our videos, you'll see that after, a few rounds, they're just that moment. It's just basically press bang. There's that whole gap. Like everybody wants to focus on how much faster they can draw and clear their garment. And it's important, clearly. But the real loss of time for most people that don't address is that they're finding their sight time. And that is when you see someone who's smooth enough, it's just press bang. Yeah, they've got it down.
I'm really interested in this because for me, so I'm older, right? I'm in my 50s. And I'm left eye dominant, but I'm right-handed,
Me
right?
too.
So when I draw and I clear my sight picture, I have to bring my hand across and then find it with my with my left eye. And that adds a
Mhm.
little extra time. It's also harder to do with a red dot because I use both. I have an iron sight strangely enough, I have an iron sight on my home gun and a red dot on my concealed carry. But either way, the um, there is a little wiggle there for me to acquire it because of my astigmatism, and I also have an astigmatism in my left eye too. So something like this for me would be perfect. So I'm actually like super interested in it. I'm going to do a gear review of it for sure. Um, and what I love about it too is it's such a simple solution, but you thought of it, right? It's just like there was an existing technology that just had not been thought of to be like, hey, well, we can do it in this way. And then obviously you have to figure out the variances with regards to how big do we want the picture to be, and all of that. So okay. So what a great macro view of everything. Let's kind of dive in a little bit and on the micro level. So you've invented the product. You're like, okay, well, you have the idea, you've gone through some iterations or whatever. Walk me through like how did you get through the manufacturing process? Because a lot of people in the space, they get hung up when they try to manufacture something because they don't realize the barriers that are involved, the challenges that are involved with actually trying to make something consistently, right? So walk me through that process. What did you learn? How did you overcome sort of the challenges in that area?
Sure, sure. So fortunately, I've already got 25 years of
Mhm.
inventing experience, so I get it, right? So, the first thing you do when you want to invent something is you put your hand, or this is what I do, is I put my hand in front of me and it's an empty hand and I say, okay, in 6 months, in a year, it's going to be in my hand. All right. So I've already seen the thing. I already know I'm going to do it. All right. But the first thing you got to do, even before that, is you got to ask yourself, is this something that is cool to me or also cool to other people? And there's a lot of inventions I walk away from because I say, well, I want one, but I don't think anyone else will. Right. So, you can make it, but the kind of like your first question is it financially viable in the sense, does anybody want this thing I'm making? Okay. So ask a few people, say, hey, I got this idea. What do you think? You know, and then the next question is, okay, can I get some kind of patent protection on it? Like if I do it, is someone going to go ahead and just rip me off? Okay, so then you file for a PPA, just like under $200. That gives you a provisional patent application. That gives you like a year to decide whether or not it's worth spending $5, $10, $20,000 with a patent attorney. And so then the next step is you say, okay, this is what I think it should do. Now, who do I need? So I'm going to need a machinist to go and make me these parts, preferably someone with some gun experience. I'm going to need someone to go and make these optics for me. Oh, wait, these are the companies that do this are all making them for toys. They're not accurate enough. How do I do that? And then now you've got to find a company that is willing and capable of doing the level that you want. So you're going to go and you're going to hire some people. Sometimes you're just hiring them for R&D, or they may or may not be production. I'm going to suggest that you don't go to China to have stuff made in the firearms field because if it breaks, someone's life's on the line, right? So, me personally, everything I do is either US or Europe. They're all, I won't touch anything in China. I mean, I would for something, if you have an invention and a failure is not life-threatening, and and if 1% of the people or 5% or whatever the Chinese make is junk, and you can afford to just, oh, my bad, and just send them a new one, fine, go to China. In the gun realm, when this is someone defending their life, or it's a cop on the beat or whatever, zero failure rate is acceptable, right? So you don't go to China for this stuff, for anything with a gun. That's my opinion, right? The other thing is, I think it's a good idea to kind of under promise and over deliver. It's like, you're gonna have a choice of materials, and no one's gonna know but you, right? Just spend the most money and get the best stuff. Like, there's all sorts of aluminum I could have used. I go with aircraft grade aluminum. Yeah, it's twice as expensive, and I get just that much more strength out of it, right? So it's kind of like it depends what your business model is, right? If you want to make a lot of stuff inexpensively, that's one thing. If failure is a catastrophic problem for people, and like, for me, I don't ever want to have to deal with anyone ever saying anything I've ever made of anything fails. It's just not my cup of tea, right? So, in my other businesses, I charge a fair price for stuff, and people were saying, well, why is it so expensive? I'm like, well, I'm not having this stuff made by people that are going to fail with. So other people have different models. My model is, there are enough people that want something high quality that are willing to pay for it. Just go that way. And then, so what you do is you're going to make some prototypes, and you're going to test it out, and no, that's not right. No, the process is going to be making it and failing, and making it and failing. And you know what they call an expert is someone who's screwed up in every possible way imaginable. So I have seen every possible way, things could go wrong. The angle's off, the optic's too thin, this hole needs to move, 3/1000ths of an inch to the left. And then eventually you get to the point where, like, okay, we're good. So don't drive yourself nuts if you're spending all this time and having a lot of failures. That's the hurdle you cross to get to success. And the harder it is to make, the less people you're going to compete with, because they're not going to have the endurance to see it through.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people don't realize, if you're going to make a firearms accessory like a sight or a holster or whatever, and one thing that shocked me is, and I knew this sort of, but like I'm kind of a gun guy, kind of, right? I'm not. I would put myself, like, in the upper quartile, but I'm not in like the top 2% of gun people. So I write for the firearms industry as well, and I had a holster client, and I was just shocked about, and I should have known this, but I was shocked about how many variations that you have to have for a holster for all the guns that are out there, right? So this must have been an interesting problem for you. It's like, because you do have, we were talking before we started recording. It's like, well, I have a Glock. All right, well, I have a Glock 17 Gen 5 and a Glock, Glock Gen 3, 19, and you. So how do you tackle that problem? So you've got the manufacturer. You start to manufacture. Obviously, you can't manufacture for every gun model out there from the jump. Or maybe you can. Like, how did you solve that problem? How did you decide, well, okay, we're going to start with this group, and then how did you expand from there?
You pick 80%. 80% of guns are contained by Glock. And then there's a little bit with the SIG P365, 320, and the Hellcat. If you get those three, you've got the majority of the handgun market. Mm-hmm. And then that's your proof of, and then when you see that, okay, this is generating funds. So on my website, I have a little thing that says, hey, if you don't see your gun, click here. And then there'll be all these other guns we could do it for. And they say, if you want it, put a note in. And so I'm keeping track. And, when I've done the next gun I'll do will be whatever is the most voted on, maybe the Smith, the Shield or something. But, don't try to get all of them, right? Just go for the half or 80% of whatever you think is easy to get to start with.
So how long did it take you to go from idea to market? And then how long have you been selling the product?
It took about a year and a half to get them, almost 2 years for me to be happy with the product. And then, I could have been marketing sooner, but I haven't really gone out other than to a couple of trade shows, because I wanted to have a full inventory. So we're still waiting on one last part to come in another week or two. And then we'll start advertising to whatever degree you're allowed to advertise for gun stuff. But yeah, it took a
Yeah, so for the actual like design process, do you see that you're going to have to make changes to it? Is there going to be like a 2.0 version, or is it pretty much like, no, we're dialed in, so we're gonna ride this, we're gonna concentrate on growing market share? Like, how do you look at the R&D process? Because I think
right.
as an inventor, you can't even stop yourself from trying to think about how to make it better, right?
Right. So you have to understand that, the odds of you getting it right the first time are pretty low, right? There are some things that are only going to show up as problems over time. So, you do this in small amounts. You make a small amount, you give them away to a whole bunch of people, you test it out, you get feedback. Oh, this is bumping into a certain type of holster when the holster has a cover that goes over it. Oh, there's a variation on this particular Glock with the backstrap. So right now we're dialed in. I don't foresee any changes ever. There's an upgrade to the optic if we can get a better ink. And I like the ink we have; it's good. But if we can, we'll always improve that. The mechanics part's dialed in. We're done with that. So just when you go into production, expect failure, and don't phrase it as failure in your head. Phrase it as learning.
Yeah, there's no failure. There's only feedback, right? So, um, and all right, so you've gone through this process. You're doing the trade show thing. In terms of what is your goal, right? Like, are you like, hey, I want every police force in the country to have this, or I want every um, Glock owner to have this? Like, do you have some kind of vision for the product in terms of that drives you? And I obviously I know it's safety for sure for regular people. Walk me through how you think about it when you think about the growth strategy.
So part of it is I wanted to have a business to pass on to my kid, or
Mm.
one of my kids, so he'd have a business to run. I thought that would be good for him. Um, so I'm already, kind of quasi-retired from my other business, so it's not about finances for me. It's really just more something to offer to the gun community. I mean, if it were just like, oh, this is interesting, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'm 56, I don't need to do this. But the results were so good, right, that I'm like, all right, I'm kind of obligated now. So, I got contacted, all right, by a major, and I can't say which one, but a major metropolitan police force. And they were telling me, hey, uh, most of our bullets don't even from the cop's gun don't hit the target. I'm like, yeah, you have about 20% is what I'm hearing, right? They're like, actually, no, in-house data, we only hit 10% of what we shoot at. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, well, that's a problem for two things, right? One, you're not stopping the threat time in a timely manner. Two, those other 9 bullets, where do they go? They're like, yeah, they go through someone's house and kill somebody while they're having dinner. So I'm like, okay, if I can help people, number one, protect themselves and their family more efficiently, and number two, decrease bystanders from getting hit. Well, I'm kind of obligated to do that now.
Yeah.
And so with the police, what happens is they have to qualify, right? And so they have to get a certain score out of 50 in order to be able to carry a gun. Otherwise, they're stuck on desk duty. So it's financially very challenging for the police precincts because they've got a percentage of people that can't qualify, that they're basically stuck on desk, and that's not what they went to police academy for, right? And so we had a whole bunch of people at this one, and this is pretty common from what I'm hearing, this one precinct that couldn't qualify. And we sent them some of our sites, and they all qualified, after like 5 minutes training, which they were thrilled about because now they just added all these people to their force functionally. And then there's this one guy who got a 32 out of 50. I mean, he was just, he couldn't hit the far side of a barn. And so the trainer who said, here, try this, he got a 49 out of a 50, which basically is almost a perfect shot, right? Perfect. So they're really excited. They're actually going to be shifting from red dots to ours because, it makes more sense, right? It's the less expensive tech. There's no batteries to break. There's no optics to fail. I mean, our system can't break. There's nothing to break. You could scratch the daylights out of it. It still works. And we'll just send you another one if you need it. So the police are going to be getting it because it's making them more accurate. It's making them faster. It's helping them qualify, getting them off a desk. A lot of people, jailers and bailiffs and courts are looking into this now. So that's my goal. And the other thing is there's some challenges I have with the way in which I learned how to shoot. Right. You know, a lot of the places, they won't teach you about getting off the X. You won't, you know, not a lot of places are going to teach force on force. And not a lot of ranges are comfortable with you moving while you're shooting. But consider this, Wade. Let's say you're in a parking lot, right? And you've got your wife and your kid with you. And some guy pulls, you know, and there's some road rage incident. Some guy's he's off his meds and he pulls a gun and you pull yours. Do you want to stand and deliver right there?
Mm.
Right. And what you see is these images people are being told, well, stand in front of your wife and your child and return fire. I'm like, really? Are you bulletproof?
Right.
And if you were, are you sure you're completely covering the people that you're trying to protect? You're not bulletproof. And they might be a little bit to the side or the gunman's moving, right? And if you drop and you get shot, right, they're going to get shot. So my perspective is get off the X. And that's not just a gentle one step to the left, like they teach, like, you know, in some places, like you move, right? Number one, it gets them out of their OODA loop. And number two, it drags the line of fire away from the people that you care for. Now, if you try to move and shoot, you're gonna find a couple of things that are a little tricky. One, to move quickly while you're shooting, and this is gonna piss some people off, it's very hard to do with two hands. If your arms lock up, your hips lock up, you can sidestep with two hands. You can't kind of like move with two hands on a gun. Not really, not quickly, not as you're turning and moving, right? So if you are going to, you know, and I know that historically that the guys from the, you know, back in the 20s and the, you know, from the Prohibition days, they're like, look, you know, stand and deliver, shoot first, shoot faster, shoot more accurately. I get it, and that's great. And yes, you know, there's a lot to be said that if you are not behind the curve, right? If you're drawing at the same speed, if you both draw at the same time and it's just you, there's an argument that you should stand and deliver and make your shots if you have nerves of steel. However, if the other guy's got their gun on you first, or you're with people, I would argue move, right? For two reasons, you know, reset their OODA loop and get the line of fire off your family. And if you're going to move, you're probably going to be shooting with one hand. Shooting with one hand is not something we typically train for, and it's tough because now you only have one point of contact and you're moving and the gun's moving. And if you try to shoot with one hand and keep your eyes on the dot or iron sights, that's near impossible to do with any kind of movement speed. But with our sights, because they're so forgiving in terms of the angle of the up and down, one-handed shooting with these is extremely doable. And as a matter of fact, that's almost all when I'm force on force, I only shoot one-handed with these, and I'm making shots, right? So why else might you want to shoot one-handed? Well, you know, when you're shooting, your hands are in front of you. And if you do force on force, you'll find the most common place to get shot, Wade, is your lead hand, because it's right in front of you. And so if you your lead hand, you may have to shoot one-handed. So what I would say is, like,
or you have to shoot lefty, right? If you're right-handed, you may have to shoot lefty. And I can see how this would be awesome with your offhand, right? Because I'm not going to be able, with my offhand, I'm not going to be able to present the sight picture that I want with my left hand. I'm just not going to be able to do it with one hand.
This is, all right. So let's talk about a little bit what happens to the brain, because let's talk about what happens with stress. So there's the human eye can actually see a little bit behind. So because the eyeball is curved, you can see behind you a little bit. You get about 185 degrees of view if your peripheral vision is active. However, if you're stressed out and you get tunnel vision, it shrinks down to about 18 degrees. You can't see this other stuff, right? And so what causes tunnel vision? Stress does, right? I guess gunfights are stressful. So does focusing on something small like a dot or sights. So dot or sights, they give you tunnel vision, right? Which is great if you have a single opponent, right? If you have multiple opponents, tunnel vision is going to be a problem. Or if you want to be aware of, okay, where's my kid now? My granddaughter's over here. I've got to move there. There's some trash on the ground over here. There's a moving car over there. There's a woman with a baby carriage over there. I got to be aware of all of it to line my body up to make the hit and make all this happen while I'm under incredible stress, right? So we want another name for peripheral vision, Wade, is situational awareness, right? So there's a part of the brain called the posterior cortical area. It's going to get a little sciencey here because I'm in medicine, right? And the posterior cortical area is what runs your peripheral vision. It also runs coordination, reaction time, balance, instigation of movement. That's so you don't get locked up. Performance of learned physical movements. So that's your muscle memory. spatial memory, that's knowing like, okay, I can move in this direction because I remember there's something over here, right? Even though I'm not seeing it. And then mental fluidity, that's the ability to, not lock your brain up. Like maybe can you talk the guy down? Maybe can you de-escalate? Maybe there's some other things you can do, and if you just get locked up, you might not have that. So when we have tunnel vision, we lose all those things diminish. We have less coordination, less reaction time, worse reaction time, less balance, less spatial memory, less mental fluidity. So it really helps deal with the stress of a gunfight. And so I want something that's going to work when your body's got a full-on adrenaline dump, your blood pressure is 200, and your hands are shaking, right? And maybe you're even losing blood from a couple of gunshots the guy got off first. I still want to be able to make my hit.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and for me too, is I'm not a purist. So, I anything that makes me faster, I don't care what it is. I don't, you know what I mean? And so I love I just love it. I can't wait to try it out. Where do you where do you see for the, like, let's say for the next like 3 to 5 years, right? Like, do you have a plan in place for that in terms of is just expansion? Are you going to focus mostly on, are you going to focus mostly on the retail market with consumers? Or are you going to focus mostly on institutional market with, like, say, police, like, or both?
Well,
Like,
both.
okay,
Both. I mean, so there's roughly 700,000 police / bailiffs, jailers, FBI, yeah, people that carry a gun, right, in the country, about 700,000 of them. And so far, every single group we brought this to is like, this is a game changer. We want our entire department to have it. So I would realistically guess maybe a third of all police are going to carry this within 5 years, just by default. Um, you know, so, some people will say, well, this is just for training. So let me tell you a training story, right? Because there's three kind of people you could use this: the people who aren't comfortable with the gun, the people that are comfortable but don't, go through 1,000 rounds a week, and then the people that are world-class shooters. So in terms of world-class shooters, Len Baxley, two-time US and one-time international IDPA champion, he took this out and it made him faster and it made him more accurate. So for someone to say this is just for noobs who don't know how to shoot, we'll tell that to one of the world's top shooters, right? He got better, right?
yeah,
Because it speeds him up. So let me tell you a story about training. So I was at the NRA show just a couple of months ago, and this guy brings his wife over, and she's visibly uncomfortable because I had the booth. I've got the guns with the CO2 and the laser, real guns, but hacked to shoot a laser so they can see them. And and I'm like, ma'am, you seem very uncomfortable about doing this. She goes, yeah, I am. I'm like, well, you don't have to, but this is gonna be really easy for you. I promise. She goes, okay. And so I give her the regular Glock, regular. I said, what do you use, iron sights or dot? And I don't remember which it was. And I gave her whatever she had. I said, okay, make your shot. And she does, and it takes about 3 or 4 seconds, and it's an okay shot. And I'm like, okay, that's good, but it's a little slow, right? That's probably good. And she goes, I know. And I said, okay, try our gun. And she does it, and she's up, and I don't know. I don't remember the numbers. It was under 2 seconds. It was like 1.5 seconds or something. It was up, bang, dead center shot, or thoracic cavity. And I'm like, how was that? And she's got this big goofy smile on her face. She goes, that was easy, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why? I'm like, and we're hanging out, we're talking. I'm talking to her husband, and 5 minutes later, this woman still has this grin on her face, like she can't stop smiling. And I'm like, ma'am, okay, I gotta ask, what's the deal? I mean, I don't know how I phrased it. I'm like, hey, you still seem really happy. I'm glad for you, but am I missing something, right? And what it turns out is her husband is an NRA pistol instructor. He could not get her to shoot the gun. With all the training he could give her, right? He's his wife. He wants her to learn. He wants her to be safe. He's a professional instructor, and she could not learn how to shoot a gun. And he's like, and you could tell that part of what was going on is it was like a marriage thing, right? It's like she didn't want her husband to feel like he wasn't able to teach her, and she felt stupid, and then maybe he felt bad, and there was this thing because it's obviously something important to him. He's an instructor. And she's like, wow, is that all? Green light on the target, pull the trigger. I'm like, that's it, ma'am. And you only do this once, right? You do this 3 or 4 more times, you're going to get even faster. And so for beginners, right, it helps them become much more confident, much more quickly. And, the guy was like, well, look, I'm happy that she's finally able to shoot. I'm bummed that I couldn't do it as an NRA instructor. But you know what? At the end of the day, my wife can shoot now. Thank you very much. We'll get one, right? I'm like, okay, great. I'm happy it's working. So, like, yes, you can use it as a training aid. Yes, it teaches you muscle memory. Because every single time the gun comes up and it's green, it's like, oh, that's how, okay, there it is. It's reinforcing that's correct. That's correct, right? That's not correct. And so, yes, you can use it as a training aid. However, you can also use it if you're on the beat and you actually have to gain that 500 milliseconds to save your life. And if you're a world-class competitor and 20 milliseconds is the difference between first and second place, we'll give you that extra 20, 30 milliseconds.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's just an incredible story, because there's in any kind of learning, there's a hump, right? So if you can get through the hump of the comfort level where you're comfortable, that's after that hump and you're comfortable, you're like, yes, okay, yes, present, yes, present, yes, present. Then you can really start to focus on acquiring the sight picture, acquiring the dot or whatever it is that you're using, because you're not spending all of your mental energy with that anxiety or that tension, because now you have the muscle memory. So I can see how it can get you there for sure.
So here's another one, right? I have a lot of fun at the gun shows because, like, I'll grab the people that have the giant, Coke bottle glasses, and I'm like, "Sir, ma'am, without your glasses, are you legal? Can you drive?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Are you legally blind?" They're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Would you come over here and shoot this gun with your glasses off?" And they're like, I'm like, "Dude, I'm legally blind." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Just try it, right?" And so I have I have a whole film reel of people that are legally blind making center mass shots very quickly with their gun sights, because it doesn't matter, right? What I tell them, I'm like, "Okay, do you see the fuzzy green box?" They're like, "Yes, it's a fuzzy green box." I'm like, "Okay, it's not sharp because you get bad vision. You see the fuzzy target?" I'm like, "I see the fuzzy target." I'm like, "Put the fuzzy green box over the fuzzy target, pull the trigger." And they're like, and they shoot, and then I show them like center mass shots, and they're just like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, you could be in a bar somewhere and your glasses get knocked off, and now what are you going to do? You can't shoot." He's like,
Yeah, I'm legally blind without my glasses. I have the worst vision known to man. I've had glasses since like the third grade. So I'm excited to try this out and do this. Because like at night, like if you're in your house and it's the middle of the night, you can't find your glasses and something's going bump in the night, like, you should be able to identify your wife and children, right? So like you can shoot with confidence without your glasses in that part with the box. So, well, listen, I think this is a great place to stop. We're kind of running up against it on time. I'm excited to try it out. I'm definitely going to do a gear review. How do people find you if they want to, like, give everybody the website? Are you on socials? How do people contact you directly? If, like, let's say that they run a department somewhere and they're like, "Hey, I want to try this out for the whole team." Give us all of your information.
sure. So the website is greenlightsights.com, SIGHTS.com. However, best that you put it in right in the address bar, because if you type it in as a search, you might find something else. And if you can't find us that way, our number is 888-456-4268. And yeah, absolutely. If you're a trainer for a police precinct, we'd be happy to get you one. And if you got some people that just can't do their qualifications, you see what happens when you put this on the sites on the gun for them.
Well, I just love this story because it is a classic American ingenuity story. And I think you're going to change a lot of lives with this site. And I can't wait to see your guys' growth. I'd love to have you on the show again in 6 to 9 months and kind of see where you're at. And we can do a before and after. And I think people are going to be really excited about what's going on with your sites.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show, Wade. It was great meeting you, and I appreciate it.